Welcome to Wine Time Mysteries, where we talk about true crime, the paranormal, mysteries, and cryptozoology with a dash of comedy. This podcast contains adult themes and is intended for mature audiences only. Don't forget to click follow and tickle that little notification bell. Now, find a comfy spot. We're about to start today's episode.
Alright, Ashley, we're not here to fuck spiders. What's today's case on?
Well, I just want to mention that there's a good doco series I saw in this one. Yeah, thanks. On Stan, called After the Night, and the killer's wife is in it as well. So it's very interesting. You're welcome. I found it when I was nearly finished with the case, because, you know, I'm last minute and everything. I don't fully,
You are?
Yeah, not at all. Don't know. So Eric Edgar Cooke was born...
Eric Cooke.
Eric Edgar Cooke was born 25th of February 1931, another Pisces, in Victoria Park, which is in Perth, Western Australia. That's Western Australia. His mother was Christine Cooke and his father was Vivian Cooke.
Hold on.
Vivian Cooke.
What kind of a man has the name Vivian?
Eric was the oldest and had two siblings.
Get out.
Oh no. He did not grow up in a loving home, shock horror, as he was subjected to beatings from his father, who was an alcoholic, and also witnessed his mum being beaten. Eric was the target of bullying from a young age due to being born with a cleft lip and palate. He had surgery when he was 3 months old and another at 3.5 years old. These operations were not completely successful, however, and he was left with a slight facial deformity and would mumble. He was expelled from primary school at the age of 6 for stealing his teacher's purse and would even be placed in orphanages and foster homes. So just no stable childhood for the little kid. Leaving school at 14, Eric worked a number of jobs and would give the money to his mum to help support the family. By age 17, the petty crime/vandalism spree began, where he would serve 18 months for burning down a church because they rejected him from joining the choir. I thought you'd like that. He then moved to break and enter, to damaging clothing and furniture. It all caught up to him when he was arrested in 1949 at the age of 18 due to him leaving fingerprints everywhere. He was arrested for arson and vandalism and would be charged with 2 counts of stealing, 7 of break and enter, and 4 of arson. His downfall was leaving a lot of fingerprints, and Detective Burrows was quoted as saying Eric was one of life's unfortunates. Now, at the age of 21, Cooke joined the army. He was promoted to Lance Corporal and learnt how to use firearms. 3 months later, he was discharged, obviously due to them finding out about his petty crime spree. By 22, he met a woman named Sarah Lavin, who was a 19-year-old waitress. They would marry and go on to have 7 children. 7.
I can't judge that. I'm one of 7.
7 children.
7!
Being 4 boys and 3 girls. He would carry out petty crimes while being married, including harassing women and being a peeping Tom. Oh, and his wife knew all about it as well, FYI. He would start stealing cars and even committed a hit and run, which resulted in a young mother being knocked off her bike, fracturing her skull and causing brain damage. Now, it was also around this time that Cooke thought he would be smart and not leave fingerprints like he did earlier, and started wearing women's gloves/children's gloves, as there were mixed reports. So I don't know whether it was women or children.
Did he have little hands?
I don't think so. I think he squished them into the little gloves because he thought he was one-upping them by wearing gloves, so it's not of a man, you know? It's a woman or a child.
Are we sure he didn't have brain damage?
Yeah, possibly. Now, before we go into it all, I found a little fact that Eric was actually active at the same time as Kroll, the Warrior King.
Oh.
Yeah, I put that little one in there for you. So the same time he was out killing,
your
so
King
was
Kroll
Eric.
was doing the same shit.
Yeah. On the 29th of January, 1959, at 2:30 a.m., Patricia Berkman, also known as Nina, A vivacious and, I don't know how you get that. A vivacious and glamorous 33-year-old mother of one awoke to an intruder leaning over her as she lay in bed. This intruder would be Eric. He stabbed the mother with an 8-inch knife to the face and chest. She tried to fight him off, but she passed away, obviously due to being stabbed in the heart. She was found by her boyfriend the following morning as he headed to work. Thankfully, her son was staying with some family friends and didn't witness the attack. Now, what was interesting was that the police suspected the boyfriend at first. Due to the pressure from the police, he fled and went back to Greece, which back then meant untouchable. When you'd go and yeet out of the... Remember that time back then? You're like, haha, you can't catch me.
Those were the days.
Those were the days. It obviously did not look good, as he was with her the night before and then found her the next morning. 20th of December, 1959, he broke into the home of 22-year-old Gillian McPherson Brewer, who was a socialite, and, get this, she was actually a chocolate heiress. Shut up with your face. I want chocolate. Sadly, she was struck on the head and body with a tomahawk and stabbed repeatedly with scissors whilst she was sleeping. A man by the name of Darrell Beamish, who was 19 at the time, was actually wrongly convicted of Gillian's murder. Beamish lived near her apartment and police questioned him. Later, he signed a confession, but would claim he did it under duress. I also just want to add that he was a deaf mute, and he would later say that they made him rewrite a confession they had written out for him. He was literally bullied into it, but don't worry, he would be acquitted of this charge, but did end up serving 15 years in jail for it.
Those murders, the two that you just mentioned, were there any signs of sexual assault that happened?
Nope.
Was it recorded as like a robbery? Did anything...
So originally he was kind of going in, stealing things as well. But
so
then,
kind of like an escalation of the break and entry.
That's what I thought at first. But then when you kind of go into it, it's a little bit more than just break and enters, and
it just
kind of going out of his way for it.
Yeah, it just seems there's such a big jump between his minor petty crimes and then boom, murder.
Yeah.
Weird.
Just you wait. This case is wild. On the 27th of January, 1963, in the early hours of the morning, Cooke decided to go on a shooting spree, which were dubbed the Australia Day shootings. 40-year-old barmaid Rowena Reeves and businessman Nicholas August were in the midst of a presumed affair, and they were in the car having a cheeky 2 a.m. drink. Cooke later told the courts he was originally going to be a peeping Tom and have a little look at what was happening in the car. Unfortunately, he also had a rifle with him. He claimed to not know why he took the rifle with him, but he had stated before that it felt a part of him and it was like his third arm. Rowena spotted Cooke from across the road and watched as he aimed the rifle in their direction. Rowena, who was sitting in the back seat, pushed Nick's head down and the bullet went through the skin on the back of his neck and lodged in Rowena's wrist. He shot at them again and missed, and luckily Nicholas sped off.
Oh, they lived?
Yeah.
Well, of course they're just recounting what happened, okay.
Yeah. Cooke then walked to Brook Street, climbed up on a garage roof and shot 29-year-old accountant / surf lifesaver Brian Weir in the head through a set of open doors while he was asleep. He would survive for some time, however, he was severely brain damaged, lingered in a coma for 6 months before finally waking. He was blind in one eye, deaf in one ear, paralysed on the right side, and had lost all power of speech. Unfortunately, he would pass away 2 years later due to complications from this attack. Cooke jumped in his car and headed towards a suburb called Nedlands. It was here he came across 18-year-old student John Sturkey, who was asleep on the veranda or balcony, whatever you want to call it, of his boarding house. He was shot at point-blank range in the head. Because back then as well, I heard lots of reports, apparently all the kids used to sleep outside as well. Back in Western Australia, they used to have the kids sleeping in the backyard or on the veranda because it was so hot. They would just pull their beds out and stuff like that, so it was kind of common for people to be outside sleeping, apparently. Cooke continued on his spree and headed to the next street over, Louise Street, where he happened upon the front door of George Walmsley, a retired 54-year-old grocer. Cute, retired at 54. Those were the days.
54? That's so young.
who also played the organ at the local church. Cooke rang the doorbell before slowly moving back. Unfortunately, George would answer the door. Cooke shot him in the head and ran off. George was rushed to hospital and passed away an hour later. Now, by this time, police were receiving a lot of backlash from the public in regards to obviously not having anyone besides Beamish. All these attacks were kind of happening. They were yet to tie the crimes together as all the victims were different, and it was out of the ordinary for a standard serial killer profile. No clues outside of a bullet casing, because obviously he's wearing gloves as well now. So February 9th, 1963, 17-year-old Rosemary Anderson was struck by Cooke while she was walking home. She had spent the night playing cards and having fish and chips with her 19-year-old boyfriend, John Button. Unfortunately, not long after, she had a fight with him and began walking home. John would be the one to find her body after he waited for her to cool off a little before following her in the car. He found her injured on the side of the road. Unfortunately, her boyfriend would be wrongly convicted for her murder as well. He would be sentenced to 10 years. However, he served 5 before being released, and to this day, people still think he's guilty. Oh, and I just wanted to add, they did the whole... Oh, this was really bad. I felt bad for him. They did the whole announcing the wrong winner.
Oh, the wrong winner.
The wrong winner. During John's trial, because they originally said not guilty, and then they went, oh, lol jokes, sorry, guilty. So, like, he literally had that, oh, not guilty, and then they're like, oh, no, just kidding, you're guilty. He's like, sucks. February 15th, 1963, 24-year-old social worker Constance Lucy Madrill was asleep at home with her housemate. It was around 2 a.m. when Cooke broke into her house, strangling her with a cord from her lamp while she was still asleep. He dragged her body through the backyard where he raped her, and then dragged her into one of the neighbouring yards where she was found stark naked, dead on the lawn by a child later that morning.
So she was dead before the rape happened, so it was necrophilia?
Yeah, this guy
just keeps escalating from...
Yeah. I can't believe I hadn't heard of him. It's crazy. August 10th, 1963, Shirley Martha McLeod, who was an ambitious 18-year-old, was babysitting for someone. Unfortunately, she had left the back door unlocked, and Cooke had entered and shot Shirley as she sat on the couch writing. A fingerprint would be found at this crime scene as well. Police went on a massive door-to-door finger bang print. I had to put it in there, I'm sorry. The disappointment. Finger bang bang.
Gonna finger bang bang.
Well, they were getting fingerprints. Now, Eric Edgar Cooke was taken into police custody on Father's Day, September 1st, 1963. Eric Edgar Cooke was taken into police custody on Father's Day, September 1st, 1963. Police arrived at his family home, to which his wife asked, "What has he done now? More loitering?" She knew, and I quote, that he stole and knew he was a womanizer, but not a murderer.
A womanizer with that face?
Yeah, so apparently she even spoke about other women coming to his house asking for him, and they're like, oh, are you his sister? Because he claimed that she was his sister with all these kids and her husband died and blah, blah, blah. So I don't know how he was getting women on the side as well, but yeah. Cooke would state to officers that they were lucky they got him now without him knowing, because he had a gun in the roof with enough bullets to kill his whole family and himself, because no one else could have them. It was when he was in custody that he actually confessed more murders. You see, the police had actually grabbed him as just after the murder of Shirley, Cooke disposed of the rifle in a Geraldton wax bush in Mount Pleasant. Police found the weapon, but would end up staking out the location for 2 weeks in hopes that the owner, or person who murdered Shirley, arrived. Sure as shit, old Cooke did show up and he was arrested. So he was really only in for the murder of Shirley. That's all they had him on originally. Officers would convince him to talk, and he ended up confessing to the Australia Day murders, along with the murder of Patricia Berkman, Gillian Brewer, who actually already had someone behind bars, as you know, old mate Beamish, Rosemary Anderson, who had John Button behind bars for it, and Constance Lucy Madrill. Eric Edgar Cooke would confess to a total of 8 murders, 14 attempted murders, and also confessed to more than 250 burglaries. And his memory was so good, he was able to tell in detail what he took. Yeah. He pleaded not guilty on the grounds of insanity. Cooke's lawyers said he suffered from schizophrenia. However, this claim was dismissed. He was convicted of murder on 28th of November 1963 after a 3-day trial. He was sentenced to death by hanging, and despite having grounds to appeal, he ordered his lawyers not to apply, claiming that he deserved to pay for what he had done. After serving 13 months, Cooke was hanged at 8 a.m. on the 26th of October 1964 in Fremantle Prison. 10 minutes before the sentence was carried out, Cooke swore on the Bible that he had killed Brewer and Anderson, claims which had been previously rejected because other people had already been convicted of those murders. Cooke was the last person to be hanged in the state of Western Australia, and he was buried in the Fremantle Cemetery above the remains of child killer Martha Randall, who was hanged in Fremantle Prison in 1909. So after Cooke's death and after the 2 wrongly convicted men were acquitted, there was a full investigation done on the police, like the Western Australia Police, and a fair few people were actually taken out of jail from being wrongly convicted, and a few corrupted police were brought to light. So I didn't add all the twists and turns in this case, because I thought I'd leave some surprises as well. But what had actually happened is when he went to jail, they kind of sealed the written confession of him confessing to all those other murders because, we'd already had someone in jail. So it wasn't until Button's brother's new girlfriend, who was a journalist, actually went through and dug up all this stuff, and she's like, hang on a second, this guy has confessed to all these murders and yet these 2 people are sitting in jail. And that's when
he tried to cover up their...
So the police tried to cover it up.
Own mistake.
And apparently to this day as well, they've never apologised for it. So that, dear listeners, was the story of Eric Edgar Cooke, the night caller / the Nedlands monster. You look very confused. A lot of questions.
Hang up the phone. Fuck him off.
Yeah.
He is done in this town.
Yeah. But yeah, in the, I would suggest watching the Stan documentary because it was really interesting because it went on a full-on investigation where they'd just seen like so many officers had forced people into confessing to a crime they hadn't done. Like with old mate that ran off, like he looked
That happens
sus.
so frequently though.
Yeah.
You would be surprised, actually not surprised really, at how often people are forced into false confessions. It's astounding.
Yeah, well, Beamish, he was a deaf mute, and apparently he only had his interpreter, only one, and he kept looking at her being like, I didn't do this, and she just ignored him and just kept interpreting for the police. Interpreting, shut up. They literally, he was like, yeah, they wrote out a list and then got him to rewrite it in his writing to say he'd confessed. Because apparently he did do a bit of peeping Tom kind of stuff as well and was a little bit...
He was a pervert.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right.
See you next time, listeners.
Hooroo.
Hooroo.